day rehearsing this. Okay. So hello, welcome everybody to our Exaflix watch party for The Social Dilemma. I'm Alan, your host, and I've invited some guests along here this evening. Now, this year, 2020, felt like the longest year ever, and we've had lockdown after lockdown, and depending on where you are in the country. And people have been talking about lockdown habits, and one of the habits that I've got into is holding one of these Exaflix watch parties every month. So far we've watched The Imitation Game. We started that in August. With Hidden Figures, Ring of Spies, which is a bit of a curveball, you could say. And more recently, we watched War Games. And some people here have joined us for some of those. Some people are joining us in the future again. And we have more titles planned for other months. If you've got a particular suggestion for a title or you'd like to join our panel, well, there is a way. There's a form, and in a few minutes I'll go to the chat. But there's a form. It's a feedback form as well. So I'll mention that in the chat. Now, a couple of bits I want to share with you. So every time we watch a film each month, we record one of these panel discussions, and then I post it onto our YouTube channel. And over there, I've been curating playlists, so you'll find little documentaries and clips and stuff from films. So I've not done it yet for The Social Dilemma. Now, next month, December, well, we're going to have a rest, because when I looked at when we would be having this, it was just a few days before Christmas Day, or 5 days of Christmas, or 2 days, or whatever that might be. So I think people are probably going to have more on their agenda than sitting and watching a film with me. But we'll be back in January. And Nicky has chosen our January title. Don't tell her that somebody else had already chosen it. It's Halt and Catch Fire. And then one of our most illustrious guests, Ian, has chosen Hackers, which I think we're watching in February. And then Carrie Ann, who's not with us, she's chosen Sneakers. That's not the chocolate bar with peanuts in. That's a different thing. We're going to be watching Sneakers in March. Ian's just shaking his head because he's thinking, oh no, I'm in for 45 minutes of this. Now, this month we've been watching The Social Dilemma, which was released on Netflix September. I think it's exclusive to Netflix. I managed to get special permission to show it, but YouTube didn't understand that. And so earlier when I did a test, they blocked me from live streaming it. Okay. The docudrama it's not really a film or a documentary, it's a blend of the two. And it comprises of interviews spliced with some clips from news archives, and there's a dramatization as well. It is a bit mixed up, because the way it comes together, but the dramatization features a family who are all of this is serving to highlight the effect that social media has on the public. And then it emphasizes the fact that just a few small individuals or engineers or companies are making decisions that impact upon billions of people. Now, tonight we have invited some very special guests. I'm going to mention their names. You can see they've all got their names as well in the in their panel. So we've got Ian, Forrester, Nicky, Danino, Rachael, Farrar, Colette, Weston, and Penny Cater. And I'm going to start by asking in that order: Ian, Nicky, Rachael, Colette, and Penny. If you could start by telling me your name again, in case, whatever. Interests, role, and do you have a lockdown habit, something that you started that you were not doing maybe a year ago? Ian.
Yeah, I guess we'll start with it, yeah. So I'm Ian Forrester. It says it right there. I work for a broadcasting corporation. And my lockdown habit, I haven't really got a lockdown habit, but one of the things I've been doing a lot of is been playing with the Diablo outside. It's probably one of the only non-technical thing or non-battery related things that I do, and I enjoy doing. And there's a YouTube video I can always show if needs be. Thank you.
Okay, and is it Nicky next? I think one of Nicky's habits is forgetting to switch on and to mute.
No, it's because I've got a fancy gold mic. Look at that. So it's got its own mute button. When Ian mentioned Diablo, my mind went straight to the computer game. So my name's
Nicky, you're
Danino.
back in the room. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. My name's Nicky Danino. I'm the academic lead for computer science at the University of Central Lancashire. Lockdown habit. I'm a little bit embarrassed to admit it because you might want a demonstration and I'm not very good, but I've started learning the ukulele. So I try and teach myself a note every day. And some days it's actually a repetition of the same note because I forget what I taught myself the day before. But I got myself a bright pink ukulele and that's what I've been doing in lockdown.
Okay, and we have Rachael.
Hello, I'm Rachael. It just says the Coveney still on my thing. I got married in the summer, so I haven't fully updated everything. But
that's your lockdown habit, getting married every month.
Yeah, my lockdown habit was definitely reorganizing a whole wedding for like 6 of the people. I'm head of computer science at a independent school in Leeds. And well, you just said my lockdown habit. Now, I think I have a very bad lockdown habit that's cost my husband a lot of money in that I'm now collecting Funko Pops.
Funko Pops?
Funko Pops, Alan. Have you not heard of Funko Pops?
Are these like more fun than Cocoa Pops?
Well, they literally don't have a purpose other than looking cute. I'm just like beckoning David to go get one. I can't believe you've heard of Funko Pops, Alan. Oh, he's brought a good one. Little Funko Pops.
Okay. It's a prop from The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not so much a good habit, but yeah, a bit of an addiction. Should have watched The Social Dilemma in lockdown.
Colette, welcome.
Good evening. So my name's Colette Weston. I work for a huge engineering company, really, and my role is to help out our clients with their cybersecurity problems, issues, and concerns, and lockdown habits. Well, I've been trying to get a little bit healthier, so that I can keep up with my youngest daughter, who's a triathlete. So I've been doing a bit more cycling and a bit more walking and a bit more all those healthy things. But to counteract all of those healthy things, I've also been watching an awful lot of box sets. I watched the whole of Dexter, which was 96 hours. So, and that was just one of the things that I watched.
Stop at season 6 because season 6 is not great.
No, I watched everything, the whole lot. Yeah. So yeah, 96 hours worth of Dexter was just one of the box sets that I managed to consume during lockdown. So
you better get ready, Colette, because I think they're doing another season.
Are they? Oh, great. Because the end wasn't that good. So if there's another season, that would be really good.
Was this on normal speed? Or was this like 15 times fast?
No, normal speeds, 96 hours. I know, it's really bad.
So we're rescuing you tonight from
You
Dexter.
are, thank you.
And Penny?
I'm Penny Cater and I work at the Boswell School in Chelmsford. I'm head of computing and head of faculty. And I must admit, I have watched The Social Dilemma already and thought it was really intriguing. So can't wait for this panel tonight to see what everybody else thinks. And probably my lockdown thing is going out for a walk at the weekend. So I've tried to keep that habit up.
Very good. Now, a little bit of a revelation. I got in touch with Ian a couple of months ago and said, Ian, recommend a film. And Ian chose a film. And then that's what we were going to watch tonight. And I came back to Ian and said, listen, Ian, I hope you're not upset, but I think we should watch The Social Dilemma. I was like, why did you ask me to choose a film then, Alan, if you're going to pick the film? So we are doing Ian's film after Christmas, but because The Social Dilemma had just been released and there's all this kind of, like, as Penny said, it's an intriguing film. Now, I don't know if it's really a film that you can say is enjoyable to watch. And so far, the films I think that we've watched have been. So my first question is, if you think it's possible to enjoy, how much did you enjoy watching it? And was there a particular part that was enjoyable? Anybody?
I'm sorry if that's okay.
Don't need to apologize. I asked the question.
I have lots of opinions. I'm going to try and be careful with my opinions. So I think it was okay. So there's loads of other documentaries which I've watched, which are similar, and I think they are better because they're still in the same area. They're still talking about misinformation. They're talking about the social dilemma, but in a different way. And I felt like this one, it has got its moments, but it it feels like, between a TED talk, which obviously Mr. Harris rushed the fame with, and also a not very good drama. That's my thoughts. What do everyone else thinks?
So that's interesting. So, right, the question was the enjoyable parts of the film, and you told us the bits you didn't like. Okay.
Sorry. All right. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. I know.
Anybody else?
Okay. I enjoyed
But
it.
I'll jump in with my favourite bit. So the bit that I found probably it rang a lot of bells and felt very familiar was when the family that were featured sat around the dining table, and Mom took all the devices off everybody, and then Isla, who was the youngest kid, decided that she was going to take her phone out of the kitchen safe and smash the kitchen safe. And actually here on my desk, I actually have a collection. So that's my number 1 phone, and that's my number 2 phone, the red one. And then we've got number 3 phone, which is my youngest daughter's phone, which I have confiscated for the evening while she does a number of things that she had failed to do since the weekend. And so it felt very familiar, that scene, I should say, to me. And yeah, that's something that happens in our house quite a lot. So that was, and I just smiled when I just smiled a lot when I saw that, because like I say, it is such a familiar aspect of our home life.
That resonated with you. But Rachel, Nicky, Penny, anything that stood out for you as enjoyable?
I don't know if I could call it a favourite bit, but I did quite like the 3 kind of little AI engineers engineering the boy. I think it just gave a little bit of a Disney Inside Out feel. So I found that quite interesting, but I'm not sure I'd really call it favourite. And then as we were watching it, I did comment to David, my husband, who's kind of hiding in the background, the bit where the girl his sister gets arrested. And I'm like, well, she's obviously trying to look out for her brother, and that's her life now ruined. But I think things like that do need to be highlighted to young people, because they can get sucked up in things and they have lasting impact for them. So again, it's not really favourite, but they were just my 2 little interesting points that I thought. I
don't know if Nicky, Penny, are being too polite.
No, well, I was going to jump in and just say that, if this is going to sound almost wrong to say it was enjoyable, but I really enjoy the psychology part. And for me, finding out more about, they've called it persuasive technology, and actually how they've got positive, I think they called it positive intermittent reinforcement. And I just thought it was amazing how you can put the psychology into technology and get people addicted. And I think they say it's a bit like slot machines. And I just found that amazing, that you can train someone through the use of technology, but very slightly, so that people don't realize that it's happening, and actually get the type of results that potentially we're getting.
That's right. And these
sorry, Alan.
And these 3 avatars that Rachel just referred to in the dramatization, it's almost like they're gaming it. Oh, let's send this across. And it's each time, it's like the fruit machine. If we give them 2 cherries and this, he may do this, and yeah. So yeah, that resonated with me as well. The slot machine. Who did I cut off then? Was it Nicky?
It was me, but it's okay. I think I cut you off. It's actually that marriage between psychology and computer science is far more common than you think. I am actually in the department of psychology and computer science.
Oh wow!
Certainly, it exists a lot as well in the gaming industry, because I know, first of all, I'm going to put it out there. Yeah, I did not like this film at all. So I was very, very excited when I heard you were going to do Hackers, because I've seen Hackers over 10 times. I love Johnny Lee Miller and Angelina Jolie, you know, so I love it. But I didn't enjoy this film at all, but I watched it for the purposes of the panel. And I think because it's something that everybody needs to watch, but I felt it was quite an uncomfortable watch. But the psychology marriage with the technology is really interesting. And actually, we can see that being taken across other fields of computing, like the gaming industry, for example. There's a lot of psychology in gaming. What makes somebody want to play, want to stay an extra hour and another hour and another hour. And it's like with the kids, you have to force them to put their phone down. It's the same, you have to force them to turn the console off, don't you? So I made a few notes while I was watching, and I thought it was really interesting. They were talking about the riots in Myanmar, and how governments were using Facebook as a political tool. And they actually called it, and I quote, they called Facebook a tool of persuasion. And I thought that was really interesting. But yes, in terms of enjoyment, I'm sorry, Alan, I didn't enjoy any of it.
That's okay. I did feel when I wrote some of these questions, the positive ones are going to be hard to elicit response from. And Gabriel in the chat's just saying, Gabriel's got mixed feelings on it as well. Definitely has the vibes of a Netflix documentary in the sense of trying so strongly to only show one view.
I think this is the thing. So there's a documentary which I cannot remember the name of right now, and it's very much about Facebook, and it's also on Netflix. It's about I think it was about 2016, 18. And it's a lot better done. Oh, the great hack. That feels a lot better, and it also targets all of the same things, but it does it in a way that I feel was a lot more realistic. I know that this film has the element of the drama, which helps people to engage with it, but I felt like it did a bit of a disjustice because, for example, Facebook's been doing the A/B testing and more since 2000 and I think 2015, 2014, and they were very public about it. They were literally changing the news feed. I'm doing the little quotes there to try and manipulate users to see if they would be more happy or more sad. And none of that stuff kind of came up. It just kind of got talked about, but not really shown. I think the other one shows it a lot clearer.
I think they implied that social media companies are manipulating users. And I think one of the quotes that I wrote down, one of the people being interviewed said, which I think this is really good, it said, if you are not paying for the product, then you are the product. And I think that was one of my favorite quotes. And that pretty much says you are being manipulated, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's always there.
I was just going to say, I've actually started with some year 8 students talking about cybersecurity, talking about digital footprints, and after watching this, we started to talk around some of the aspects of technology that they mentioned, and it's actually given us some really good discussions within the classroom. So how how upset the kids feel about the parents taking phones off, only giving them certain limited times, all of that type of thing. And we've talked a bit about why that happens. So it's been quite a good tool for allowing us to debate different social scenarios, their own situations and that type of thing.
Can I say, the drama, I felt as I was watching, I've watched it 3 times now, I felt like the drama was kind of an afterthought, like, oh, how we're going to make this, how we're going to make people want to engage or watch it, particularly a younger audience. But one of the things I found doing with the drama is something that I wonder if others will admit it in this. You've been on, if you can think back to when you were last on public transport or in a restaurant or something somewhere, and you look around and you kind of go, my gosh, everybody seems to be on their phones. Oh, I was on the train today and there was this family opposite and they never engage. And I think, I don't know if it's a human tendency, we can tend to look at others as we do in a drama and we go, oh, my family, we wouldn't be like that. We'd be, and it's, I think what I'm asking is, do you think it's easier for us to see the sin or addiction in others and not actually hang on, I'll just check my phone, not realize, we're actually doing it ourselves?
I think that's certainly something that I mean, I have a lot of conversations with my kids and always have done about the social media for a long time. And there's often well, you're doing it element to their conversations. And I am much more mindful now about putting my own phone away and not responding to all the pings and buzzes immediately, and that myself, to kind of try and show a reasonably good example. But it's difficult because of all of the ideas that they were highlighting about the psychology behind what they do to get people to respond. And I mean, I've certainly been toying, when there are 5 years between my two daughters, and so it was significantly easier with my elder daughter to hold her off, because the guy right at the end, which was one of 54 quotes that I wrote down, he suggested 3 rules for social media. First one was devices out at a fixed time every day, and I very much prescribed to that one, despite much remonstration from my youngest daughter.
He actually suggests having a negotiation conversation, saying
we do some negotiation, but it depends much more on what day it is. If it's a school day, does she have to be up earlier the next morning? These kind of things. And but sometimes I just say no, that's it, and give me the phone. And as tonight, quite often the phone gets launched in my direction because she's absolutely furious about having to give it up. But it's tough. It's tough taking those kind of decisions and saying, right, no, that's enough. You have to give the phone in, and that's enough. So yes, there is some discussion. We have relaxed the rules a little bit, so she goes a little bit later now, and it's changing over time. I think the second rule was that social media from a certain age, and he suggested from
16,
high school at
16.
Well, as I was saying, with my older daughter, we despite, we all know that Facebook has a minimum age in theory of 13, which is 2 years into our high school. And so for my elder daughter, yes, we managed to do that. She wasn't on Facebook until she was 13. She wasn't on social media until she was 13. But 5 years down the line, it was very much impossible to keep younger daughter off the social media until she was 13, despite the fact that Facebook is of no interest to 14-year-olds now. And I think she does have a Facebook account, but it's not one of her primary social medias. And I think the third rule was to work out a time. So like you were saying about negotiating a time, the amount of time to use. And I mean, I did try and set up, reasonably technically literate, I've done a bit of a BSc in computing. I've been in the industry for 10 plus years. I'm reasonably familiar with software development and all that kind of side of things. But Apple's parental controls are complicated, and my 14-year-old, when she was 12 and a half, managed to get around them, managed to get extra time, and probably that's my own fault for taking along to hacker conferences, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility for them to search around Google and find ways around getting time. So basically now the phone stays with me, it's on my person, and that way I know that it's not being used.
One of the things I thought could have perhaps been done better is, we've seen the film's very negative. The countermeasures, like here are practical steps you can take. They only actually started those as the credits are scrolling up at the very end.
Yeah, there was a lot of...
Like, do you know, tonight when I was doing the screening, I nearly stopped the screening just as the credits came on.
I noticed.
Would have missed it. I took any of the other countermeasures. Do you do some of these yourself, Rachael, Penny? Is there like?
I've spoken to some of the kids at school and talked about what I used to do with my kids, because mine are a bit older now, and they think I'm a terrible mother because I was so strict. But I think it's giving them that sort of like balance of, you know, every house is individual, every parents are individual, and to respect the decision. And we've had those sorts of conversations, because you've got some of the kids in one classroom who are allowed 7 hours, and then you've got other kids who are allowed who are limitless, and then you've got others who have 2 hours. So to try and get them to realise that actually it's different households that have different rules, and that, you know, there are reasons behind that, and maybe that's something that they want to talk to their parents or whoever's at home about. So that's the sort of conversations I've had. But I was extremely strict until they got to a certain age with both of mine. So they didn't have phones until they were going to secondary school. They only had them when they were moving to and from school. Time was limited on the computer. So I was probably more harsh than a lot of people.
They are tough conversations as a parent to have with your teenagers, where, you know, either you're sure you do know what's best for them, or if you don't, you think, well, what if I don't know? At least they're not going to come to any harm if they spend 2 hours less than their peers do on social media.
Doesn't it depend though what the tool? I mean, because tools can be created for legitimate purposes and then applied to nefarious use, can't they? So,
of course,
I mean, yeah. I am on technology constantly, but I am reading. I am always reading. I go to bed with my phone and I spend an hour reading. So here's my question to you, Alan. We were talking, you brought up the issue of being on a bus, yeah, and where people are on their phones. If it was 20 years ago and the whole family was reading a book, would you feel the same way? Because, you know, maybe people want to sit there quietly and read a book on the bus, which is what I tend to do. I take my Kindle, which is the same thing, isn't it? But if I'm reading on a phone, why would you want to confiscate that from me? Because actually we want to encourage teens to read, don't we? Yeah, so surely it's not about the fact that they're on technology, but what that technology is being used for.
I'm glad you brought that up, Nicky. Sorry, I just got to jump in here, because the problem I have in all of this is that we're making all of these excuses or doing things when actually the apps that they're using, the way that they've been engineered, are deliberately trying to keep people in a bubble or keep people addicted. You know, Nicky's point about people looking. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, my parents, you know, used to read the newspaper a lot. Yeah, I would never kind of look, tear down. Don't look at the newspaper. Don't, you know, there's a difference to it, and it's because these applications are deliberately trying to keep you in a bubble and keep you kind of connected in a way that suits them. And that's the big difference. So I understand all of what's been said, but we cannot overlook that. And that's my biggest problem with all of this, is that, you know, that a lot of these things are engineered. So someone really used the case of gambling machines. You know, there's a woman called Natasha Dow who wrote a really good book about the psychology of gambling machines and how the industry has used that against the people, and that's horrible, and that's the big difference. You know, we need to stop. We need to look at the root of the cause, and the root of the cause is that not necessarily social media, but it's actually the way that these companies want to basically addict. I hate using that word, but I'll use it for now. Addict their users and keep them in their bubbles.
But I guess the question is if they weren't using their phones, what else would they be doing? Because that's really the essence of it. Because actually, if all you're saying is let's have family time and sit around the TV, that's almost the same thing, isn't it?
I'm not saying that. I'm sure they'll find something else to do. And some people will, I mean, like a lot of people, you know, especially when I remember when I grew up, everyone was complaining that people were playing computer games, or people were watching too much TV, or you had your stereo on too loud and stuff like that. There'll always be something, but the difference in this case is that you've got an external company going, keep on doing what you're doing because it's making us money, and that's a massive difference.
I think for me, it was the quote from the psychologist, which she said, these services are killing people and causing people to kill themselves. And then he quoted some statistics that since 2010, 11, since the introduction of these social media services, the suicide rate in teen girls had gone up by 70%, and in preteen girls, so in theory he shouldn't be using these rates under 13, had gone up by 151%. And what Ian's saying is, you know, it's quite right. These companies are now selling their services to the highest bidder, and unfortunately that advertising is having a very, very negative and detrimental effect on groups of people who are what's the best way to say, probably illiterate to the dangers, or unaware of the dangers, or uneducated to the dangers.
I did feel that the mental health element, I didn't really feel was dealt with. It was a very light touch. There was a couple of references to it, and then, right, let's go and talk about fake news.
I think because it was very US based, and they probably deal with mental health in a different way than we do in the UK. You know, it's a real shame, because all the things that we're pointing out are obviously evident. We've got, you know, Colette's talking about facts to back up what we're talking about. But between all of these issues, we forget that actually social media can be used for good. Tech can be used for good. AI and predictive algorithms can be used for good. We've seen all the work that Bill Gates is doing in terms of environmental work, you know, predicting earthquakes, predicting storms so that people can get to safety. And all of these things tend to get hidden and buried underneath all the bad ones, don't they?
Do you think, Nicky, though, that there's, as Ian was saying earlier, that there's this, oh, well, we'll tell people we're doing all this good stuff. So, for example, I've read posts before where Facebook is saying, oh, we're bringing the internet, the free internet, to these developing countries, and they're providing devices that are preloaded with Facebook. And the only way of actually accessing, it's not a free internet. It's not like, we could talk about maybe Mozilla in a moment, alternative, you know, decentralized. Sorry, Nicky. Do you think that they're masquerading what they're doing as benevolent gestures? Yeah.
I don't think so, because I think we're talking about in different people. So, for example, what Facebook is doing is being counteracted by other companies and other people who are doing good. I'm sure Facebook are trying to masquerade their own downfalls as well. But there are genuine people who are only wanting to do tech for good. But they might not be as big as Facebook, so they don't have that kind of power or reach, do they? So they get kind of buried underneath the big names, really.
Yeah, and I think that is a really key point, what you're saying, that we should really identify with the good as well. But I think that one of the quotes that really resonated with me, because we look at a lot of science fiction films, and I quite like the Terminator and things, and one of the quotes in there was almost the same as what I think it was Sean from Facebook said. We knew what we were doing, but we did it anyway. And I think that was really, especially working in schools where you see things going on, you can see the sort of technology generation that are coming up, and they are being used as manipulative, and it's being used as persuasive technology rather than a tool for good, which is ultimately what it should be. And you know, to have internet and to have devices and phones is really great. And, you know, we still have students who don't have access to that type of technology, but it's making more, I think it's making more people aware, parents and students better educated in that these tools can have this sort of negative impact. And I think that's where there's almost a disparity is with the education. between parents and the younger generation.
I certainly see that in that when I take the phone off my youngest at night, there are messages coming through at 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and I do worry sometimes that some of my colleague parents aren't as aware as to what their children are doing with their devices until 1 or 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning on a school night, and the impact that can have.
And one of the questions I tend to ask the kids is, you know, would you give your phone to your parent or whoever's at home and let them have access to it? And there's a huge percentage of children in the classroom who say no.
I personally have a rule that the phone, I have the access code to my daughter's phone. I can pick it up, and she knows that I can pick it up at any time and look at any of the apps or any of the messages on the phone or the email, and that while she is under the age of 18, she is my parental responsibility, and I take my responsibility very seriously. And if there is anything on there that she wouldn't be happy for me to see, then she probably shouldn't be doing it.
That's always a good strategy. You know, if you don't want your nan or your mum seeing it, then
Exactly.
It's probably not a good idea.
It's probably not a good idea.
It's an approach for adults as well. My approach is, if I'm not willing to stand up and say it in court, it doesn't go in an email, it doesn't go on the internet at all. It just doesn't exist anywhere.
True.
You know, you have to be so careful.
I mean, for me, I read this book. I don't know whether you can see that. So it's called Program or Be Programmed by a chap called Douglas Rushkoff. Yeah. And that was written in 2010 and gives 10 commandments for a digital age. And it's things like time, do not always be on, place, live in the person, choice, you may always choose none of the above, complexity, you are never completely right. And it goes on through these, and I think that they are a really solid foundation for anybody, child or adult, for the social media. And I do social media. I do a lot on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook are the kind of 3 main social media that I use. I post every day on Twitter. Oops, and there's my alarm to say go to bed or get ready for bed.
I'd like to ask, I wonder if we could start with Penny. So I'm letting you know, Penny, this is a teacher trick. You mention the child's name, then you ask the question. Sorry, that sounds patronizing. The question I was going to ask Penny, and then others can get a chance when Penny speaks to think about theirs. Did you find, as you were watching, you thought, oh my gosh, yes, I do that all the time, and now I find that did the documentary reveal to you anything that you hadn't really thought about that you're doing yourself that you would admit to? And I chose Penny because Penny's face is a little darker at the moment, so we won't see her face going a little bit red as she owns up to it.
I tried to light up my corner, but it's not quite worked tonight. Sorry, I have to get some more lights. So lockdown has been quite good. I now don't do as much, but I must admit, I was aware that I was becoming more addicted to my phone than was healthy. Not unhealthy, but just, you know, you'd wait for a ding, or you'd wait for or somebody's messaged, and let's see what's going on or what's happening in the world, and you almost get drawn into it. So I think a while ago I started to switch off quite a lot, just to think, actually, I don't really have many notifications on my phone. I don't do that type of thing, but yes, I did. And I think it's quite easy to, it's easy for somebody to message rather than pick up the phone. And I suppose I went back to a bit more old fashioned, if somebody wants to talk to you, then they'll ring, and that type of thing, really.
I think not everybody knows that certainly the mobile OS platforms, you've got a lot of control over which notifications, like even something like eBay, you can have it so every time somebody watches an item, bids on it, and like there's something like 30 options. I don't want to know all of those things. I just want to know if an item I'm bidding on is about to finish or not. Then I can, you know, get in there. And they offer you way too much. Anybody else catch themselves doing something, or that the social dilemma flagged up that they thought, oh, maybe need to curb that a little bit?
One thing it didn't mention was
Ian's a good boy, isn't he? Look, no, I'm a good boy.
No, I'm not a good boy. I just, I guess, sorry, maybe, you know, because of, I've been very aware of this stuff from a long time ago. And because I'm not using, for example, I am on Twitter, but I'm not using the actual Twitter app. I'm using another third-party app. So my choices are different. I also can't like stuff. Yeah, so that doesn't even, so people talk about liking stuff on Twitter. I'm like, you can like stuff on Twitter? I thought only Facebook does that. So it's stuff like that that makes a difference. And this is actually one of the things I've said that is missing from the social dilemma. Is there's none of that kind of practical advice. It's all
Yeah.
kind of
There was one thing about taking the color out of your apps. You can turn your phone to just grayscale so that none of the apps have any color on them, and it's something that I'm kind of toying with at the moment, whether that might be a good thing or not. But
I have all my notifications turned off after 10 o'clock. But for me,
yeah,
I love technology. You know, it's my hobby as well as my job. And but you've got to think of it as a pull thing rather than a push. I will pull from technology when I want to, rather than when technology pushes towards me and forces me to use it. But the other thing that for me has been a game changer really is when I came to university at 18 to study, I still remember collecting my pound coins so that once a week I could go to the payphone on the corner and call my parents, because that was the only contact I could have with them. You know, now I can WhatsApp my mum, I can post on her Facebook page, and living in a different country from your family, I think social media has brought us closer together, actually.
no, I agree with that.
Chat. I'm not going to mention the person's name, but David, the one that got them their oh my gosh moment was the question, which was, do you check before you pee or during your pee? It's not you know, when you get up in the morning, the first thing you do. So listen, folks, we're getting close to 9 o'clock, and I'm sure if this was going on till 10 o'clock, we'd find lots more to chat about and talk about. And we're going to be looking and exploring more films, more enjoyable films in the future. Before we do wrap things up, we've already had some nominations for some good titles to watch. Anybody want to shout out some ones that you think now you'd recommend? They don't have to be related to use of social media.
I'm voting for Hackers. That's my second vote for Hackers.
Well, Hackers is already on the list, Nicky. So you save yourself a vote and put another one in.
Hackers 2.
Oh, okay.
Why not? No, Hackers 2 is quite good. It's quite different.
Okay.
My vote goes for I Am Mother.
Nobody's mentioned that.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
I am. Oh, Ian approves. So Penny and Ian will
Not
be
heard
on
of that
panel.
one.
Yeah, AI is pretty good as well.
Yes, yeah.
Anybody watched The Robot and Frank, or Frank and the Robot?
I've watched that.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we might watch them. So I found I Am Mother.
We should all do a big Colette 96-hour style. I don't think it's quite 96 hours of I Am Robot. I Robot.
I tell you what's quite old but has quite a lot of really lovely ethical dilemmas around it is Bicentennial Man.
Okay, I'm making a note of that one.
About whether a piece of AI can become human because they can think like a human and have human parts. So that was really nice. With Robin Williams.
I'm just going to post, before we shut everything down, I'm going to post in the chat again the link to the form, because you can record these in the form, and you can, and I'll just post it onto our event stream as well on YouTube. Now, the other thing I was going to say, I don't know if anybody here would say that they've been watching The Mandalorian recently. I just discovered it. My daughter's boyfriend started watching it. Have you watched The Gallery? The Gallery. It's like an accompanying thing. It's the making of The Mandalorian. And there's one episode 4 called The Volume, where they take green screen beyond, and Ian's going to tell us, oh, they've been doing that for years, Alan. You're only just catching up now. But they have these huge massive wraparound, pixel perfect screens that is their scenery, and it's all done by Unreal Engine. And it was just amazing.
I watched it on YouTube. It's really, really interesting, and they explain it in a way where anybody can understand how they've applied the technology. So I think it's really good.
Okay, so lots of tips there. Right, listen, everybody, thank you so much for giving up your evening. Thank you so much for watching a difficult film and adding your comments. And this will be posted soon on our exa.foundation channel, along with some other things. And we'll see you in January. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
So it stops the recording. Now we can kind of go, whew, Alan, I'm never coming to one of these ever again. It's off the recording, so it doesn't matter. Okay.
All good.
Right, Colette, your alarm was going a moment ago.
I know. Well, that's one of the good things about the phone. I have a million alarms during the day to tell me to do things, and one of those is that my calls will be silenced and my notifications will be switched off, and I'm now on good evening. And
I can't believe you all go to bed so early.
I mean, neither.
I'm like,
Sorry?
night and me. I'll go in a few hours.
I think computing.
Well, I switch off now to get my hour before going to bed. So yeah, usually about 10 o'clock. But then I'm up early. So
I do my best work at night.
Yeah, it'll take me a little while. I'll have to come down from, Nicky said this, and then Penny had this thing, and then Rachael said this thing, and she had a little, so it'll take me a while, but I'm usually up for sort of 6 a.m. So without any alarm.
Yeah, that's where I am as well, around the 6 a.m.
Wow.
Sometimes I go to bed at 6 a.m.
Yeah, I know.
I used to do that, not anymore.
Nicky, you're so rock and roll. Okay, right, I'm going to click on that button, and then the next button, because you think you click end and it's all going to finish, but actually no, you need to click on the next end button. So thank you very much. We're going to go in about 5.
Thank you, Alan.
Bye.
Bye.